Navy come to town. I'm doing some Caps action over the weekend. We got the Terps playing some of these preseason games. And all eyes on Monday night as we head back up to Foxborough. I know the way. This guy knows the way there as well. He is all things Patriots at WEEI in Boston. You can follow his journey out on Twitter, and tens of thousands do at C Price NFL. We welcome Chris Price back on. He with the Hartford Whaler hat. You know all the words of the Hartford Whalers theme song, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, man. I heard that song so often when I was a kid. It was unbelievable. It was amazing. It was practically Connecticut's state anthem, for goodness sake.
Well, right. I mean, people don't know. Brass Bonanza, right? That's the name of the song.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yep. The cheesiest theme song in the history of professional sports.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, absolutely, man. But hey, the Patriots had a real song that they played up there. We'd be sick of hearing that too, like "Fly Eagles Fly" in Philadelphia or whatever. We know our way around this one, right? I mean, there are a lot of teams that come up a little yellow puddle under their legs on Monday Night Football in Foxborough. Joe Flacco and Terrell Suggs and Eric Weddle and not this group of guys. This could be a hell of a football game on Monday night.
It really could. Whenever these two teams get together, I think 95% of the time that it's decided by a touchdown or less. Julian Edelman said it right after the game on Sunday against the Rams. He said, every time we face Baltimore, we know it's going to be a fist fight. These two teams go after the same type of guys. The Patriots were in on Steve Smith. They were also in on Eric Weddle. These two franchises are very, very similar. It should make for an awful lot of fun on Monday night.
All right, well, so where are the Patriots' life after Gronk? I mean, far be it from me to write Tom Brady off. We've tried to kill that witch on more than one occasion, over the course of time. But they're definitely different. What Dean Pease, what the defense is going through, certainly what Weddle and Ladarius Webb, as well as the whole middle linebacking part of the core, whether it's C.J. Mosley or Zach Orr, nickels and dime backs, all of that changes with no Gronkowski out on the field.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting because the Patriots are kind of a work in progress, a bit of a work in progress offensively, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work without Gronkowski on the field. I will say this, they are a little bit better positioned this year than they have been in years past when they have lost Gronk. They've had a handful of guys already kind of step into that void a little bit. Some youngsters, guys like Dion Lewis, James White, Malcolm Mitchell, have all managed to step up and distinguish themselves over the last game or two, plus earlier in the year as well when he was out with a hamstring issue. Then you have the regular guys. Edelman, he's coming along very, very well. He's over the kind of the foot issues that dogged him a little bit earlier in the year. And then you have, Martellus Bennett, who I think for my money has been one of the best additions to any team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, over the course of the season. He's 40-plus catches already, 12 games in. I think he's done a very, very good job. Look, obviously it's not going to be one guy who's going to step up and replace the production that a guy like Gronkowski is going to give you. It's going to be a collective. And while some of it falls on the shoulders of Bennett, they've had a really good group of guys, at least at this point, step into that void and kind of raise their collective game a little bit. This is a big test for New England, too. This game, and the game after that, they go out to Denver. This is a real litmus test for them. I think a lot of people are pointing to these two games as a referendum on whether or not this team really has that championship character this year.
Chris, was Belichick really counting on Gronkowski anyway, or did they always sort of feel like, well, he might be there, we hope he's there? They didn't build the team around him the way, let's say, they built the team around Brady.
Yeah, no, they didn't build around Gronkowski. I think at this point, all snaps are not equal when you're talking about Gronk, and there's a reason he hasn't played in a preseason game, at least if I can remember correctly, since 2012 or so. And everything is kind of geared toward the idea of keeping him as healthy as possible for the most important games in the calendar. Now, when that happens, you have to kind of go to plan B, and you have, like I said, a handful of guys who've done a really good job to this point in the year, kind of filling that void and stepping up and replacing that level of production. But no, they're not. They haven't built themselves around Gronkowski. They've allowed themselves to be able to move on from him if he was able to, or if he did go down this year. So it's nice to have him, and I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't affect them going forward. But like I said, I think ultimately they're in a better place now. They're more prepared for the possibility of a Gronkowski injury now than they were, say, a couple of years ago.
Chris, how many years on the beat for you at EEI?
I've been at EEI since 2009.
Okay, so there was life. You knew a life as a Patriot fan, as an observer outside of that building. Some do, some don't. Like, I don't know any life without the Ravens. I was here when they came off the boat. I'm celebrating 25 years on Tuesday, so I know everything from before they were here through. I think there's a whole different thing when you come in from the outside, and you would have, like, if I were to come and cover the Patriots, a thought about what the Brady things like, what the Belichick things like, and then you get involved in it. We got the Army-Navy game here this week. I had Bob Sosi on earlier who called Navy and, made favorable comparisons to the way the Navy football program is run and the way Bill Belichick does his business. But it does take a Brady at the top of that to make it work. And, here we are again, and I have a feeling 3 years from now, if we come back to New England, Tom Brady will still be there at 42 or 43, right?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting, too, and that's a great debate up here as to whether or not Brady is going to end up finishing his career here in New England. He's going into this with his eyes completely wide open. I know his dad has talked about the fact that, he's aware that it's not going to end well for him here just because he saw his guy, Joe Montana, finish his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. But, yeah, I think that, when you look at how this thing has been built, how this thing has been constructed, that this doesn't happen without Brady. And I always make the analogy that Brady and Belichick are a little bit like Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi, and that both of them would have been successful if they did not come across each other. I think that, both of them would have enjoyed a level of success in the National Football League. They wouldn't have been as successful as they are now if they hadn't found each other. But I think the two of them together, the fact that they share a football brain, for lack of a better term, I think in a sizable way, that's contributed to the measure success the Patriots have had over the last plus years.
So what would you say on the outside about Brady at this point and preparation? What makes him so special?
Well, there's a couple of different things, and it's really, really intriguing. I think that one of the things is that he is an absolute fanatic when it comes to health and fitness. And, he talks about avocado ice cream and working with Alex Guerrero and making sure.
Have you had any avocado ice cream? I mean, it does not sound like, on the face of it, particularly disgusting. I mean, I like avocados. I mean, if Tom Brady can stomach it, I could probably have a mouthful of it and check it out, right?
It's not even avocado ice cream. I mean, he talks about, never having had a tomato or like odd stuff like that, ways that he's able to kind of keep that window open, at least from a fitness perspective. It was funny, we were talking to Drew Bledsoe. They just had a thing for the 2001 team up here last week to celebrate them, and I asked Drew Bledsoe, was Brady always this into fitness? And he said, oh, no. I can remember a couple times going out with Tommy for a couple of beers. So the avocado ice cream thing is relatively new when you talk about his fitness and diet regimen. But yeah, when you consider Brady and what he's able to do and how he is able to keep his body in top shape, the other thing too is that it was funny. I was just talking about this with someone that he knows how to, if this makes any sense, he knows how to get hit and to absorb the tackle and to contort his body so it minimizes the damage on his body. And not a lot of quarterbacks do that. The 2008 injury, the knee injury aside, that's a whole different thing. But I think that's one of the things that has allowed him to have the level of success, at least from a health perspective, that he's had over the last dozen plus years, is that he knows how to get hit. He knows how to take a sack where it minimizes the damage on the body. That's just one thing. That there's a whole bunch of things that he's been able to do that's allowed him to be able to have the same level of success that he's had over the course of his career. It's putting a good offensive line around him. It's having a franchise that puts an emphasis on good complementary football, so it's not always on his plate that he has to kind of lift the whole team up and they have to win. But there's a handful of things that have allowed him to be as successful as he's been here late into his 30s.
He is Chris Price. He covers all things Patriots up in New England at WEEI.com. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at CPriceNFL and his Hartford Whalers hat as well. If it was a Quebec Nordiques, that's the only way I could have more respect for it at this point, Chris. I think, like Kyle will say, offensive line, you mentioned that. I haven't talked a lot about that this week. I go back to the Matt Lights and the Joe Andrewsies and, all those guys that feel like there were 3 generations ago now for this team. Tell me about this offensive line and protecting Brady, and certainly fighting a Ravens defensive front seven that has been statistically as good as any in football.
Yeah, that's going to be the battle this week. I firmly believe that. I think the Patriots' offensive line has held up really well. They've been good but not great over the course of the 2016 season. One of the reasons they've been better this year than they were at the end of the year last year is the return of Dante Scarnecchia, the guy who was an offensive line coach for 20-plus years in New England, retired after the 2013 season, came back and started this year, and he's been able to kind of get guys to play at a higher level. Look, Scarnecchia's genius was really not in the Matt Light or the Logan Mankins of the world, getting them to play at a high level. Those guys were good. They stayed good. They became great. His true ability as a coach is to be able to take a guy like, a third-round pick, Joe Tooney, or, a Marcus Cannon, guys who are Jags fundamentally, and make them into game-ready NFL offensive linemen. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen from this group this year, is that there have been a group of relatively anonymous guys, particularly along the interior, including David Andrews, an undrafted free agent out of Georgia, who's been the center since the midway point of last year. He's been able to take that group and take them from here to here and make that a fundamentally workable offensive line. In the last couple of years, the offensive line coach here really struggled with that grouping. And so, like I said, ultimately, to answer your question, it's been a good group, not great, but more than enough to be able to keep Brady upright and keep that running game moving.
It's like the mafia, right? Every time Scarnecchia tries to leave, they pull him back in. Same thing with Josh McDaniels, right?
You know who he is? You know who Scarnecchia is? Remember Pulp Fiction, The Wolf?
The Wolf, Winston Wolf. He solves problems, absolutely.
That's who Tom Brady and Bill Belichick called in the wake of, Brady getting snapped in half of the AFC Championship game last year against the Broncos. They called the Wolf. They got him back. They pulled him out of retirement, and the offensive line's in much better shape now.
Well, we'll see that on Monday night, Chris. And, it must be nice to just say to Jamie Collins, get out, right? I mean, after Week 7. I don't know that anybody saw that coming. I mean, you don't get rid of football players like that in the middle of the season.
No.
And I guess if you do, if you can't send them off to the Siberian front, you send them to Cleveland, right? But
yeah.
But if they don't win, if the defense breaks down, if there are injuries in the middle of that core, questions will be raised. But I guess Belichick's above all of that after 20 years, right?
Well, yeah, he is a little bit, but he did take a little heat up here for this because the defense did struggle in the wake of that trade. And the thing is, at this point, that they cannot afford another injury. They got rid of Collins. Jabal Sheard has kind of struggled. He's been up and down a little bit. They've gotten a really good performance out of their defensive line, as well as Dante Hightower and Malcolm Butler. That's kind of their defensive core at this point. But they can't afford to have another guy out of that group go down. Yeah, the Jamie Collins thing was interesting. I agree with you. No one saw that coming. It developed really, really quickly by the sound of things. They shipped him out of town, and they've had a rotation of guys next to Hightower over the last few weeks. Basically, the last 3 weeks for this team, it's been the junior varsity portion of the schedule. They've had the Rams, they've had the Jets, and they've had the 49ers. They've had an opportunity to kind of try some things out, try some different personnel combinations, see what works, see what doesn't, so they can be prepared going into Monday night and then going into next Sunday against the Broncos as well, because this really, like I said before, this is the litmus test, especially for this defense, which has been up and down over the course of the season.
Well, you'd like to say this whole thing is the preseason for the playoffs for them. In some ways it is, but they don't have to get on a plane and go out to Oakland.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it really fundamentally, it all boils down, Nestor, for this team. If they can keep home field, if they can find a way to hold off Oakland down the stretch. Let's say they finish 13-3, even without Rob Gronkowski. I don't know of any other team in the AFC that really kind of scares them. I think that there is. And I'm not just saying this to you. I think there's a bit of a boogeyman factor when you're talking about the Ravens.
Good. We love to hear that. Say that again.
It's true, though. There really, really is. Out of any other team in the AFC, I think when you talk to Patriots fans, there is more concern. I'm not saying that the Ravens are necessarily capable of coming into Foxborough and winning, but there's more concern when you talk about the Ravens than you talk about any other team, because Baltimore in years past has come into Foxborough and won playoff games. And so I think that you look at the rest of the AFC, the Chiefs, I don't think they scare anyone coming into Foxborough. I don't think the Raiders, they came into Foxborough for an AFC championship game. It's a nice story, but I don't think that's the kind of team that would really push the Patriots. I think the team that worries the Patriots the most and has the best ability to come in here based on past history and give them a scare, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, people asked me before the Miami game, what did you think of the Ravens? And I said, well, when they've had all their players, they've been really good. And on Sunday, for the first time, really all year, Jimmy Smith out there running around, they had all of their players. No disrespect to Alice Lewis or a couple of their offensive linemen, young guys that they've lost along the way, because there's been a little bit of that. But the team that Ozzie and John drew up back in May, back in June, going into mini camps, the way they wanted it to look, it's looking more like that, minus a shoulder for Terrell Suggs, who's playing with one arm. Marshall Yanda playing with one shoulder at this point, and we talked to him at Greenmount Station this week in Hampstead on Wednesday night about that. This is a formidable team. This is a team capable of beating the Miami Dolphins 38-6, which they did a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and it's like I said, man, when you consider the history, and I wrote actually a piece up now on WEI.com, the 10 best moments of the Patriots-Ravens rivalry. This is really, in my mind, the most underrated rivalry in the NFL right now. And I know that, Patriots fans can talk about the Broncos and, the Jets to some extent, and I know the Ravens can talk about the battles in the AFC North with the Steelers and the Bengals and the rest of the group there. For my money, it doesn't get much better than this, because every time these two teams play, it's a tight, tough game.
Well, there's always something on the line, right? Even this week, we played Denver a bunch to begin our season, right? And it's a big game, and we have to go out to Denver, and even after we won our championship, because of the goof that owns the baseball team here, we had to do that. But losing to Denver in the beginning of the year, it's a big game and all that, but it's not a big game. This is a big game. If the Ravens lose this game on Monday night, they're really in a lot of trouble about being able to play in January. If the Patriots lose this game, they're going to wind up having to go on the road at some point in January, and that's not good for either one of these teams. And it really is a bright lights Monday night game that we don't really get a whole lot of Monday night games like this anymore.
Yeah, and it was funny. I quoted the old Bill Parcells NFL film playing. This is why you lift all them weights. This is why you do all that stuff in the off season. December football, meaningful December football against playoff level competition. This is what it's all about. It doesn't get any better than this when you're talking about real high-level NFL competition.
He is Chris Price. He does all things Patriots up there at WEEI.com and radio throughout the region up there as well. You can find him at C Price NFL out on Twitter. All right, so what do you think? Do you see this as a game where the Patriots are going to rue the fact that they've had a month of relatively good cooking and easy football?
Well, I think that the key for New England is to be able to look at guys. And look, we all know what you're going to get with Brady. You know what you're going to get with Malcolm Butler, Dante Hightower, Julian Edelman, all those guys. The question is that can the Patriots get through this game, and have they discovered guys on both sides of the ball through these last 3 weeks that are going to be able to be serious contributors down the stretch and into the postseason? Guys like Malcolm Mitchell, the young wide receiver, Kyle Van Noy, the linebacker they traded for earlier this year, Shea McClellan, who's been a bit of a disappointment, except for the last couple of games where he's really started to come on. If those guys can continue to execute like they have over the last 3 games and continue to ramp their game up, this should be a win for New England. Because, again, we all know what the Patriots and the core of the Patriots are capable of, particularly in the offensive side of the ball. If New England can get a few second-half stops, a few key second-half stops in this game against the Baltimore offense, the Baltimore passing game, they're going to be able to win. But it's going to come down to one of those second-half games. And the one thing I know for sure, Nestor, in this one, it's not going to be a blowout. This has all the earmarks of one of those late-score games, a touchdown with 2 minutes to go, 1 minute to go, last team with the ball, that kind of thing. The one thing for Baltimore Ravens fans to think about here, Patriots special teams have really struggled this year. They've been up and down. Stephen Gostkowski, the kicker, usually a rock-solid kicker, he's been up and down. Allen, he's been up and down. We know that Baltimore is one of the best special teams units in the league. The Patriots, usually one of the better special teams units in the league, but they've been up and down this year. That could turn the tables on Monday night.
I want to say Tucker 42 yards for the win. That's what I want to say, Chris.
Yeah, that's these games. It's funny. You go back and we talk about the history of this rivalry, and you can point to a lot of special teams plays, determining the outcome of this thing. Whether it's Tucker connecting, a couple of years ago down there, Billy Cundiff missing in the AFC Championship game. These are the kind of games that are decided on those plays, and I think there's a very real possibility of that kind of thing happening on Monday night again.
I'm still pissed about the Rex Ryan timeout in 07, but, not that I keep track of this rivalry at all, Chris. Hey, great having you on, man. I look forward to seeing you up there on Monday night. Make sure you keep the chowder warm there. I'll be going for an extra bowl.
Sounds good. Take care, my friend.
You got to see Price NFL out on Twitter. Christopher Price at weei.com and all that they do up in the New England area. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from anywhere you are. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally each and every morning, courtesy of Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. Eggnog, pumpkin pie, cookies, ham, beer, whatever you've been eating and drinking, you can work it off at Planet Fitness. Get yourself in shape. And the lunk alarm, and never intimidating. It's the way they do things. Just one right in the neighborhood, wherever you are, Planet Fitness. Last but never least, any breaking news and injury reports and updates leading up to Monday night's endeavors in Foxborough. You'll get it all first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzis will be here each and every Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5 with the SSV on WNST, getting you ready for Thursday Night Football and a weekend of, Ravens-Patriots talk. And I've had a few guys say this week to me from up in that area, hey, maybe you'll be coming back in January. And I say, we can only hope so. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And we'll be at Buffalo Wild Wings and Owings Mills on Monday night for the game as well, giving away the best seat in the house, as well as a blazing wing eating challenge at halftime. Good spot to watch the games. We watch every Monday night there. Come on out and join us at B-Dubs in Owings Mills. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.